I began with refreshing the leash pressure game, attention noise, and off-leash walking behaviors on a long line further away from the squirrels where my dog could be successful. To start, I hold the long line at the same length as my dog's normal leash, so my dog is understanding that they're on a long line and not loose. Bliss does not have very much experience on a long line because he's usually off-leash or on a 6-foot leash in the city. Here, I'm marking and reinforcing him for moving towards me when I suddenly move in a different direction. Here, I stop and mark and reinforce him for thinking to turn back when he hits the end of the leash. You could put down something in the environment to work on the leash pressure game, or you could use other distractions that are easier. So for my dog, he's very calm around other dogs, so I'm using a dog as the distraction to work on the leash pressure game, or sniffing a tree. I'm also practicing to see if he responds to his attention noise when something is distracting. So here you can see he's finding it easy to walk on the long line on a loose leash and reorient to me when I change directions and move with me. So it's time to work near the squirrels. Things to practice for the goal of being off-leash around the wildlife. 1. Work on the look back, and not look at all protocol, which I covered in a previous video with Bliss in this same location. Check the description for the video. 2. Practice the attention noise, recall, leave it cue, and leash pressure game while looking at squirrels. 3. Move with me with direction changes. 4. Reinforce slower exploration and movement towards things of interest. Here you're marking and reinforcing your dog for moving calmly while looking forward at whatever it is they're interested in. 5. Cue your dog to sniff where the wildlife has been, and then either recall the dog or ask them to move with you. Then release them to sniff again. 6. Make a real connection with your dog before releasing back to explore the environment. 7. Work on settling or working on other behaviors when the dog is not feeling conflicted by the environment. When working on things that either excite or scare your dog, sometimes your dog's level of excitement can go up and down during the training session. This can happen from the duration of being in the environment or for other things like things that the dog has smelled, seen, or heard. My guy here, he can get very excited when he hears the squirrels make their chirping noise. For Bliss here, you can see when we moved to this area with tables, that also made him more interested in the squirrels. When this happens, you can simply go back to the basics, which was covered in the first video that I made, or you can create distance and give your dog a break. When you're working on distractions, you really want them coming from only one direction at first. I go over this in my first video describing how you can use the parking lot as a way to escape and create distance if the dog needs a break from being around the wildlife. When I entered this area, it's a circle and the squirrels are all around the edge of the circle in the bushes. This is a very high level of difficulty for Bliss here. This is his 3rd training session out and about with squirrels. You can see when I ask for his attention and I try to make a connection with him, he's not really able to do it. He's looking in my direction, but every part of his being is focused on the environment. His body is stiff, his gaze and his movement of his ears and eyes is more frantic, and you can see he's in conflict. As soon as I give him the treat, his head whips around to the environment. Here you can see by simply moving to the location where the squirrels are only in one direction, on the right of the screen, it's much easier for him, and it's also the location we practiced before. When you first raise criteria or you're in a new location, it's normal for the dog to look a little bit excited, but if the dog stays at that level and doesn't calm down, you need to go back a step because the dog will make faster progress if you increase criteria as the dog is successful. As you can see here, by decreasing the difficulty of the environment and instead of having the squirrels surrounding him, they're only on one side, we can increase the criteria of asking for different behaviors while the squirrels are in the environment, as well as working on settling in the environment. Here I'm inviting him to go and check out the areas where the squirrels have been. I use the cue go sniff, and then I point. If there's a hole, I can point to the hole, and then I can practice using my movement away and seeing if he wants to follow me, or I can use a recall to practice calling him away from something that exciting for him. A lot of people ask me, when do you know that your dog is going to be reliable when off leash? Now, it's important to understand your specific dog and what makes them overexcited and what makes them scared. So are there any things in the environment that when your dog is scared or overexcited, they won't listen to you? And if so, if those things can show up, there are chances that your dog might not listen to you. If your dog has a squirrel run right in front of them, are they going to run after the squirrel and completely ignore you, or are they going to listen to you within a few seconds? So Bliss here, if a squirrel were to suddenly run right in front of his feet, it might take him a couple seconds to register that I'm calling him, but he would come back. However, if I thought that a squirrel could dart out in front of him and then he'd be down, a mile away chasing the squirrel, I would not have him off leash. What I do want to work for is an immediate recall where the dog listens within a millisecond of me calling him if he saw a squirrel run right past his nose. That is the goal. But what I'm showing here is that it's not the long line and the leash that's getting the reliable behavior, it's the reinforcement of the behaviors you do want. So that's the beauty of using positive reinforcement, is that when you take the leash and the harness off, those aren't managing the dog. What you've done is reinforce the dog for the behaviors you want with the safety of having the leash there. And what you'll see if you don't use any forms of physical or psychological intimidation is the behavior off leash will be the same as the behaviors on leash. So it's important to understand you don't need to race to have your dog off of a long line, as what you're doing on the long line is training them to be off leash.
And relax. Just relax.
Go sniff, recall, then release back to the environment.
Blissy, go sniff. Go check it out. Bliss, come. Good boy. Good job. Ready? Go and sniff. Go sniff. What's in that hole? Bliss, come. Good boy. And well done. Missing the holes. Good job.
This exercise works best when you're asking your dog to check out the same environment and recall them from the same thing they've already smelled. Then you can really build the speed of your recall before then using it in another situation. Here we're back at the location where he was previously very excited. Connecting with social interaction and touch. You can build these to be secondary reinforcers at home and in less distracting environments, and then start to use them in more distracting environments, like this one here for Bliss.